Hi, my name is Clark Yuan, and I'm the founder and CEO of Stitch3D. We're building a cloud-native platform to host, view, and analyze 3D point cloud data from anywhere with ease.
Hello everyone, my name is Clark, and I'm the founder and CEO of Stitch3D. For the last 2 years, my team and I have been building a cloud-native platform that makes it possible for anyone to view and analyze 3D data right on the web. But first, let me tell you a quick story. So 10 years ago, when I was in the Army, deployed to Afghanistan as an intelligence officer, we were using this really cool technology called LIDAR for 3D laser scanning. Now, LIDAR data would be great for analyzing things like the steepness of a mountain road or the crater volumetrics from a roadside bomb. Only there was a huge problem. The way that we were sharing LIDAR data was literally by sending out runners with backpacks of hard drives just to get the data to that one analyst who had LIDAR-specific software already downloaded to their desktop. And then, instead of looking at a 3D model, I'd end up looking at a screenshot on a PowerPoint presentation. So there was always a lot of friction in working with 3D files, but this was not unique to the military. Here's Erlich Bachman from the 2014 Disrupt putting it nicely. Okay, so basically what he's saying is a bleeping 3D file, are you kidding me? And is it going to work? And he responds with, I hope so. So, all jokes aside, that is from the show Silicon Valley. But that was 10 years ago, and people today are still shipping 3D files when it comes to sharing 3D data. And this is because 3D data is complex. Not only are we talking about file sizes that can range from a few megabytes to a terabyte or more, but there are also a lot of different types of point cloud formats out there, making interoperability a real pain. And by the way, your Google Drives and Dropboxes of the world, they can't view any of these files. So it's become fairly clear that even though LiDAR technology is now more accessible than ever, a broken digital infrastructure is keeping all this data locked up. 3D data cloud processing is the next big revolution in spatial computing, and the US military is investing behind that. The Air Force has funded Stitch3D with 6 R&D contracts worth $1.8 million to go re-engineer the future of cloud architecture and make 3D data universal, not just for the military, but for industry at large. Let me show you what we built. So what you're seeing here is the core Stitch3D platform, and we've re-engineered the backend so that the upload pipeline can handle point clouds of any file type or size. And this is really the secret sauce behind our architecture. But we've hidden all of that complexity behind a UI that is simple and familiar. So if you want to go and see who's shared a file with you, you just go to your shared folder. You can search, sort, filter, everything you'd imagine you'd be able to do on a normal data platform. But unlike a Dropbox or a Google Drive, where you can't see the 3D files, here we can open up a 13 megabyte file, or this 39 gigabyte file from Lahaina. Now, Lahaina is a unique data set because for those of you who remember, this was a city that was completely burned to the ground during the wildfires on Maui last year. So the first thing we can do is we can map it to a spatial map to give us some contextuality. And the government is really struggling right now to move people that have been dislocated by the fire back into their homes. So they requested LiDAR data to help with that analysis. Here you can see the topography, elevation of the land. And something that's really cool is if you want to see how many structures are still standing at Lahaina, this is it. Everything else burned to the ground. And this information is exactly what the government needs to be able to forecast cost for planning the restoration projects. So we can help expedite that analysis by doing things like measuring the area of a plot of land that needs to be recovered. Or we can do things like measuring the stockpile volume to track all the material that's coming on an island, for example, of this gravel stockpile. Now, we initially built the technology to measure bomb craters for the Air Force, but there are a lot of different dual-use applications for 3D data. And here you can see the volume calculation there. And then once you're done with all of the analysis, you can just simply share with somebody using their email or with a public link. And of course, if you want to really see light and dark mode, there's that as well. So LiDAR use cases have become increasingly horizontal. For example, Ryan is out there mapping traffic accidents with his iPhone LiDAR to help police departments with the 3D investigation. Or there's Daniel, who's flying drone LIDAR to map golf courses for EA Games. And then there's Brian, who's doing 3D laser mapping of schools and buildings for renovation projects. All of these small business owners have previously struggled with sharing 3D files with their clients, but with Stitch3D, that's no longer an issue. And there are a lot of these SMB surveying firms out there. We believe that these are the folks that will help usher in the next $100 billion industry that is the 3D data market, which is why we're building our technology to service the SMB market first. We believe that these users will not only help us build a more robust product, but also help us prove product love. Already, we're generating about $1,800 of MRR monthly, and with no user churn, and our user growth rate is averaging 25% month over month. And when the time comes to build vertical features to drive enterprise value, we will already have a strong recurring revenue base to operate from. And one more thing. Today, right here at TechCrunch, we are unveiling our newest product, a Stitch3D LiDAR app. We built this app initially for users to be able to scan and share 3D on the go. But for those in this audience who are just 3D curious, go ahead and download the app. Scan for yourself, as you see I'm doing here during rehearsal yesterday. It's super easy. Just scan, share, and save. We built all this with a very small team of engineers and only $700,000 of pre-seed funding. If you believe the future is 3D, come join us on our journey. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Stitch3D. We love it when people launch things on the stage. Judges, who has questions?
Thanks for the presentation. Are the Air Force contracts all phase 1?
Phase 2s.
Phase 2. Awesome.
2 phase 2, 4 phase 1s.
Nice.
And then 2 active phase 1s that are going for phase 2s.
OK. Awesome.
What do you think the biggest commercial application will be for your SMBs?
So that's a loaded question. It's kind of like asking, like, what are the biggest use cases for a camera? What we're seeing right now is, people are using LiDAR in all sorts of creative ways. Insurance companies, for example, can really use LiDAR to map topography, whether it's for mapping floodplains on a big scale basis to see, like which area codes can be insured and which area codes cannot, instead of just saying like all of Miami is no longer insurable. And then at a miniature scale level, people are mapping or capturing their cars, their buildings, their roofs with their iPhone LiDAR. So really, the data is being used in creative ways now. And what we're trying to do is make it more accessible for people to access LiDAR data. And this will allow us to increase the number of use cases that are possible.
What's the revenue model? I know you had 1,800 MRR for an SMB. If I'm going to scan my roof, for example, what am I paying?
Yeah, so right now it's a freemium SaaS subscription model. So we're charging folks just on storage. So it's $20, $50, $100 a month for your storage needs. And we've already started to release in-app features for vertical requirements, such as doing digital elevation modeling, drawing contour lines, and these will be priced as in-app self-serve features. Long term, we do have a dual-use go-to-market strategy with the Air Force. We're already in the pipeline with them, but we're looking at enterprise contracts down the road to service the larger organizations like an Exxon or a General Motors who have a 3D reality capture need.
What are your current gross margins and how do they scale over time?
Yeah, so currently it's hard to say what our gross margins are. We currently don't have any gross margins in terms of just our server costs and based on what we're charging people. But long term, this is going to turn to kind of a classic SaaS margin operation. And just looking at comps, we're expecting margins in the 85% range. And current revenue is just from our SMB users right now, but eventually we'll scale to larger enterprise clients.
Who are your next few hires?
So it's a product growth strategy for our go-to-market. So we're going to hire a few more engineers to help us, execute a product-led growth playbook in terms of, building more features into the product itself that kind of don't really add to the core 3D technology that we're building for, but just to make the product a little bit more robust so people can have an easier way of signing up and creating accounts. But yeah, I imagine our next few hires will also be engineers.
Are you focused on building any integrations into other industrial software systems, maybe a CAD system or anything else, kind of post data collection?
Yeah, we've been asked that question a lot, and I think that's something that our user base wants. So yes, long term, that is definitely on our roadmap. But the reality right now is we have a team of 4 engineers, and so what we want to do is use the capital we have right now to make the product as robust as it can be for 3D interaction, and then down the road, really expand out the platform to be able to plug in with other CAD software, BIM modeling software.
What are the biggest bottlenecks to unlocking further enterprise traction?
Unlocking, sorry, what?
Getting the enterprises aboard.
Yeah, so there's a lot of data security requirements, team features, a lot of enterprise features that you'd imagine
It's like on-prem a problem.
On-prem problems. There's a way of, there's a status quo problem. People have always used on-prem hard drives when dealing with 3D data. So convincing an IT department to shift everything to the cloud is a challenge in itself. So we have to really prove out that our data security is in place, which I think we can do because we're already in the pipeline with the Air Force, and so that's already on our mind, long-term for enterprise data security. But when you're talking about managing hundreds to a low number of terabytes for the SMBs to potentially petabytes of data for an enterprise, there's definitely infrastructure challenges that we'll need to engineer around. But I think a lot of that just comes with more capital and more engineers.
When you think about going from a military contract to a commercial contract, how are you making sure the team's mindset is less project-based and more actual application-based over time?
Yeah, it's I think that's a problem sometimes I even struggle with because we see all the possibilities that are out there for different 3D applications. So something that we constantly just iterate within the team is like, what are we building for right now? Right now we're building for the SMB surveyors and engineers out there who just need a way to share data. They want to give their clients a way to view the 3D model, make some measurements, and communicate on a 3D viewer. So we've architected the infrastructure to be able to do that. But when you think about big vertical tools like object extraction, for example, object detection, that's something that the Air Force wants to be able to do to automatically identify bombs that have been littered in the war zone. That's going to take significant amount of engineering work to be able to add those features in. And I think, it just we have to build our roadmap to solve for the current users while keeping like the big picture in mind.
It's hard to serve two masters.
Yeah, given the early adoption and the early stage of this technology right now, we think the SMBs are the early adopters, while there's like a long tail of these early adopters, and eventually the rest of the industry will catch up. And then when they do, we'll be ready to go with enterprise features.
All right, give it up one more time for Stitch3D.